Fine.
You sure?
I think so.
Take it away, brother.
I think we're ready to go here on Citizen Watch on KYOS AM 1480.
Aren't you going to let me finish reading first?
Broadcasting. I'm going to give you all the time in the world, Robert.
All right.
Broadcasting from the beautiful... There's the comment you want. Broadcasting from beautiful Studio C, palatial KYOS headquarters located at 1020 West Main Street.
You tell everybody we're moving?
Merced, California. You're moving.
No, we're moving. The radio station's going to move to the rich section of town. We're going to be right next door to the new police department.
That's it.
Wow, that's information to me.
Yeah.
Well, did you know this?
I didn't know that until now, but that's good to hear.
Did you know that?
G and Olive.
How much, Case?
Or G in your sense.
That's one of my rants today. I'm going to do some observations, and that's one of the observations I have is I was talking to some people on 8th Street, 8th and M, 8th and N, over when I was visiting the... gosh darn it, drew a brain fart. When I was visiting the Club Mercedes. And they were saying that all of the services seems to be heading towards the lake area. And that the rich people keep getting more and we get less.
Well, when you say the rich people, they say the north side. I'm over there. I'm certainly not rich. But
excuse me, you're not on the north side.
I'm certainly from the south side myself.
Let me introduce our panel.
What panel?
Case
they know
who
we
for the first time. We got Steed.
Nobody's
Colvard
listening for the first time.
Behind the controls. I've been banished from touching the knob.
But I haven't.
Temporarily.
Yeah, management has to get. I guess we have Windows XP version 1.
Right.
And
they're hypersensitive right now to who's on the computers because they don't want to let a virus in. So
some of our other show hosts, of course, not us, use the computer for checking email and stuff, and we try not to do that here at KYOS. But Steve Colvard behind the controls and co-host today.
Hello.
And Robert, the Velvet Sledgehammer Tomasetti, was touch and go.
I'm Sledgy.
I hope so. I hope you're Sledgy.
I hope
he's Sledgy because yesterday I was. Well,
let me clear the air.
And I'm Casey Steed.
You are Casey
But
Steed.
I am the John Pedrozo apologist.
Well, Robert and I got a little disagreement over this article
that
came
big.
out in the paper this weekend.
But we kissed and made up.
We did.
Some tacos.
I'll tell you, I've never had a brother. I've been an only child.
I know he doesn't know how to play well with others,
And all I can say, if this is what
Robert, you can say the same thing about you, dude.
What?
About playing well with others. It's like what you do to other people, when they do it back to you, you quit. You just walk away.
I walk away. I learn not to
but
fight
when you
anymore.
do it to others, it's cool.
Yeah, because it's
when
funny
somebody
because
does
you guys
it
don't know how to
to you,
handle
you're
it.
just like, I quit. I'm done.
Robert,
here's what happened.
Me, my mom would tell me, you can dish it out, but you can't take it, Casey.
I can take it, but what happened was Casey and I had a disagreement. There was an article this weekend that we were talking about, a Sunstar special report.
And it turns out we really don't disagree that much.
No, we don't. And I disagreed with the content and the way the article was written. We don't disagree that what happened, and Casey and I will go into this a little further, and I basically took my bat and ball and went home, and Casey's like, you can't do that. And I go, sure I can. Goodbye. And close the door.
It wouldn't be the same show without Robert.
Okay.
And even though I know Robert's in a difficult position with his civic...
It has nothing to do with that.
Well, I hope not. But I can understand if it did. I really could.
No, it had to do with the fact that I was characterized by my friend Casey in a derogatory tone, and I took exception to it.
Let's talk about the subject that you guys are talking about.
Yeah,
let's do that.
Maybe we can kind of illuminate where your differences of opinions are.
This was the article that was in the Merced Sun-Star. Robert has it, and
I'm reading it.
What is the title?
The title says it's Merced County Government Politics in Tax Collection ?
And it was on the Saturday edition.
It was in the Saturday edition, and here's what I think.
Isn't there a subtitle too, though? Supervisor's help or something like that? Because I've seen
that's the way it said
headlines.
No, it says policy shift gave break to firms that owed big sums.
Right.
Supervisors' influence in question.
Right.
Now, I would say, based on the title alone, there's an accusation from the newspaper that there's been some shenanigans going on.
Right.
That's exactly right. And I'll tell Robert, I summed it up this way. A lot of ink, not a lot of substance.
Right. But what I was upset about...
That's concerning to me. That's concerning to me as a journalist.
Timing.
Here's what I was upset about. I wasn't upset at the timing. That's politics. Okay? This is why people approach me and say, why don't you run for office? And I tell them, I know where the skeletons are buried in my closet.
You wear that hat, you're going to get every vote.
You like that hat, huh?
So that hat is money, dude.
Anyways, so what happened was I personally have a problem with this article because and everybody knows I'm a big fan of John Pedrozo as a person. There are some things he does that I think stupid is as stupid does, and he'll agree.
And one other thing I would like to make a point is it seems to me like John Pedrozo has been a target of somebody. And
exactly.
I'm not sure that's true or not, but I would love to get to the bottom of this.
Well, here's what I had a problem with when Casey and I were talking about. Casey was looking at this isolated instance and said, Robert, but look what happened. And I'm like, Casey, you're not understanding. This is not just an isolated instance. Larry Morris in a meeting goes after John Pedrozo personally. Okay, I mean, he points him out and says, look, what are you doing?
He called out his district.
Called out his district. Even though we know that there are as many murders and as much crime in Winton split between Lynn Davis and Deidre Kelsey as there is in John Pedrozo's.
So why is John such a lightning rod? Why is everybody attacking John?
You want to answer that? I think
really?
I think you know the answer to it.
Okay, you really want to know what I think? And John's going to hate me for this, but hey.
No, I don't think he will.
What happens is John Pedrozo has a tendency to, and it's just like Josh, and this is why I like them and I vote for them. You may not agree with what they think or say, but at least you have access to them to find out what they're thinking and saying. Josh Pedrozo will not have a problem, and he did this with an issue I had that I called him on this weekend, and he talked to me for 45 minutes, and it was heated. But at the end, I was like, okay, Josh, thanks a lot. Hey, have a great weekend. Have a good Easter. Bye. We could do that. The situation with John is I think John sometimes leads with his face and not his brain. And what I mean is that John does things that are questionable. They're not illegal. They're not unethical, but they're questionable. And I tell this to John all the time. The perception.
Right.
Now, what I got angry about was John got pointed out by Larry Morse, not once, but twice. There was another article about Miss Porras and her relationship with John and what he did for her, which ended amount to be nothing really, just bad advice. And now we got politics and tax collection. And what I see, it's funny, is I see John Pedrozo's face here, but I don't see Deidre Kelsey's.
And is there someone in the DA's office or otherwise that has...
why'd you go there?
I don't know. I'm just asking you. If he's getting attacked by the district attorney's office, is there someone in there that could possibly have a vendetta against John Pedrozo? I mean, or is there someone in county government? I don't know why John seems to be the
Well, I'm going to tell... Well, if you read this article, you will see this in case you'll point
let's talk about the facts of the article so people know what we're talking about. It's basically John was... the inference was maybe some influence peddling over one of his constituents, a guy named Victor Produce. Guy grows sweet potatoes evidently out there in LeGrand. He was behind on his...
I believe it's in Livingston.
Anyway, he was behind on his taxes, okay? And when I say taxes, he was reassessed. Some of his property and equipment was reassessed by the assessor. It was a $142,000 bite he wasn't expecting. I give you that. But he was 4 years behind on that bite, okay? 4 years behind. The county came. They seized his money back in the first part of 2013. And
froze his bank account.
Basically took the money out of it.
And they can do that.
Yeah.
They can do that.
Yeah, they get to the point now. The problem is they did this illegally.
But
they did it.
They seized the money illegally.
That's right. They didn't follow procedures. It was more than 3 years of taxes. You can only go back 3. Okay, now I see there's 2 stories in this article. One about Karen Adams, actually 3. One about Karen Adams, one about John Pedrozo, and one, like Robert says, about the rest of the supervisors and what's they're doing. Because there's some damning statements in there by these collectors that all of the supervisors are guilty of this. So again, why are we picking out just John? But what John did, this guy gets his bank account seized. Okay, he calls John on a Friday, goes down to Revenue and Recovery. They can't help him. They say, look, you owe the money, we seized your account.
It was too close to 5 o'clock.
Right. So he puts a call into John. John was out of town at the time, San Luis Obispo somewhere. He comes back on Monday, talks to the guy. Tuesday returns his call, sets up a meeting that following Thursday, the 13th, with Karen Adams, John Pedrozo, Victor Produce, the guy that owns the money. They sit down, they say, look, you're going to get on a payment plan, $10,000 a month, okay? We'll give you your money back because we took it wrongly. And this guy had to meet some payroll. He employs about 100 people. So he's appealing to John on that basis, which is fine.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong yet.
Don't see anything wrong yet. But that very same day, the 13th, when the deal is struck, the guy is so appreciative of what John has done for him. He says, I want to do something for you. You've helped me out more than I can. This is what John told me.
We got to backtrack just 1 minute here. When the gentleman was told that he had to pay the taxes, the issue was, what I found out is that he needed the money to make payroll.
I told you, he had payroll. He had issues.
employees.
Right. You've employed over 100 people, a lot of people. You ever see the delinquent tax rolls in the paper? It's that real super fine print. It covers about 10 pages. There's a lot of delinquent tax people.
Okay.
And a lot
so they're able to come to a meeting in the mines.
Come to a meeting in the mines, $10,000 a month payment plan, blah, blah, blah. The guy is so appreciative. Victor's so appreciative. He goes, I want to do something for you. I want to give you, I want to give you some money to your re-election campaign. John says, whoa, 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 whoa. Not here. Not right now. Meet me later. Okay. Now this is where Robert and I agree that and I think Steve's seeing the light too. That is really stupid.
But it is really stupid. But again, if I had a supervisor in my district that was able to help me out of a jam like that, I would do all I could to get him reelected also.
Understandable.
What is it?
Makes perfect sense, but it has a perception.
Thank you, Casey. It's the perception what makes it look like there's a hidden agenda.
Right.
But so Casey is right in what he stated.
That's all I'm upset with, and I've told John that, and I said, John, if you had to do it all over again, would you? He goes, no, Casey, I wouldn't.
No.
He goes, if I, looking back on it, it was a stupid thing. I did a stupid thing, and he said I could say this on the air.
To accept the donation off,
the same day.
I think what he did for that gentleman is noble.
He did. He kept 100 and some odd people
employed.
The guy is still current with his payment plan.
And to me, that's what a supervisor is for.
But here's
the
part.
Guy did embarrass him a little bit. 2 months later, after getting the payment plan,
guy fell on hard times.
He was delinquent again. They seized his bank account again, illegally, again. He goes to John. He gets Jim Fincher, who's the county council, Jim Brown, Karen Adams, Victor. They all go into a meeting. Now, the county council didn't know about the quid pro quo, and that's the wrong term. Let me back that up.
That John had helped them out previously?
Didn't know about the $1,000 donation.
See,
he knew about the first time.
Okay.
Jim Brown was aware of the first meeting. Didn't sit in on a meeting, but was aware of it. Okay, so anyway, this guy kind of makes Johnny look a little bad. If you go out on the limb for me and put your reputation 2 months ago, hey, I'm going to get you, on
first time shame on you, second time shame on me.
Exactly. So anyway, they get the guy down to about a $2,000 a month, and so far so bueno.
Yeah, but wait a minute.
So far, so good.
Exactly.
So they knocked it down from 10,000 to 2, so he could keep, and that's very reasonable.
Sounds reasonable.
And I tip my hat to the county tax collector and everybody else involved.
So that's the one issue about John Pedrozo, isolated out of this case it talks about many businesses in many different supervisors' districts. And one of the telling things that one of the collectors said is, we are not able to do our jobs because the power to be are keeping us from doing our job. And they're talking about doing these bank levies. And then it begs the question about Karen Adams, why aren't you doing bank levies anymore? They stopped doing this.
And that's seizing the bank accounts?
Seizing the bank accounts, because they were doing it wrong twice. Now, all we've heard is how good Karen Adams is a tax collector, and she's done a marvelous job in her tenure. But if we've seized money improperly, I hope we haven't had any lawsuits. And two, it takes away a vehicle from us to get revenue, because as you know, we're looking at a $10 million deficit, and we need revenue. But I've talked a lot, and I want to let Robert talk, because I know he has some points.
Okay, can we let Robert talk after the first break, or do you think you can?
I think we probably ought to go to break and keep this first segment short, because there's a little bit more to talk on this. Like I say, the timing was an issue. A lot of ink about, not a lot of ink about John. I'll tell you that right now. The one thing he did, and he admitted it, and he said, I was wrong, Casey, it was bad judgment. And we find this about John time after time. He leads with his heart. He's a nice guy. He's not criminal.
Just before we go, let me tell you this.
To a criminal
when
intent.
You read the article, there's a snippet about Summit Sales, which had some problems. There's a snippet about Wakecraft Boats.
These are businesses in our community.
Three that they talk about. The Summit Sales is a little snippet. Wakecraft Boats is a little snippet. Mr. Victor is three columns long.
Right.
So to me, I took offense to this, and I thought, why are they attacking John's client when I found out, or I heard, that there's some hanky-panky in other areas, which we will do.
And here's another question I'm going to beg to ask before the show's over.
Beg, baby, beg.
Why is the Sun Star after John Pedrozo?
Well, I think it's misguided. I think it's misguided zeal.
It's just a coincidence that John's the one that keeps getting the headlines on the weekend newspaper.
Dumb things.
So we like to report it because it looks fun and whatever.
But you don't see any personal vendettas anywhere.
I see that there's a possible power play here, and I'll tell you this when we come back from the break.
We'll be right back. Hey, folks, welcome back to the second segment on Citizen Watch.
Oh, I'm in the wrong place.
No, you're in the wrong place. That was fun, though. I appreciate you guys letting me sit on the Randall Road Show.
Cool?
Heard Saturday night at 9. It was great chemistry. Hope to do it again. But this is the April 22nd edition of Citizen Watch with Steve Colvard, Robert the Velvet Sledgehammer Tomasetti. We're glad that he could join us today. And I'm Casey Steed. We're talking a little bit about that Karen Adams / John Pedrozo / rest of the supervisors. I noticed how the other supervisors distanced themselves
from John
in the meeting, in the comments.
One
I would never do that.
And
Deidre Kelsey specifically said, "No, at no time have I ever met with my constituents over tax issues." And she says, "There's no reason for a supervisor to get involved." And what does that leave old John swinging in the wind?
Yeah, I disagree with that statement. Mm-hmm. I actually applaud Mr. Pedrozo for what he did to help out one of his constituents stuck in a situation where you have 120 employees who might not get their paychecks. I applaud John for doing that.
That's right, and so did the Mr. Victor, and I think a lot of people would agree with that.
Here's my spin on this. Yeah, John, you did something dumb. Yeah, you admitted to it. That's noble. Please try to keep your butt, and it's a big butt. Try to keep it out of a sling and out of the crosshairs of everybody, because what I had, and this is where Casey and I disagreed, and we went to battle on this, is I thought that the article, now Casey's right, the young ladies knew, and sometimes in their zeal, but you do some things, or some things came out in this if you're really reading it. First of all, he's right. Jerry O'Bannon, Hub Walsh, Lynn Davis, and Deidre Kelsey distanced themselves from this situation. Deidre said she refers to people Adams and tries to ensure proper communication, but hasn't met with constituents about tax-related issues. I hear that that's a falsehood. Beyond that, I don't think there's any reason for a county supervisor to get involved with trying to ameliorate, good word, Deidre, what thesaurus did you look that up in? Mm-hmm. The taxes someone owes.
I think pays and left one laying around.
Yes, I know. So anyways, Deidre Kelsey, from what I heard, there's one of these companies, I don't know if it's Summit Sales. Actually, it was told to me, but it's not in the article. But Waitcraft Boats or some Summit Sales, one of them, I believe, sits in Gustine. And there was a call or emails, or there was contact I heard. It was told to me, reported to me, that from the supervisor, District 4 supervisor, to Karen Adams' office to help, exactly like John Pedrozo did. But when John got his butt in a sling, it seems that the District 4 supervisor vehemently denies ever doing anything like that. Oh, I would never do that. Well,
and chastises anybody else who does.
I would make no apology for doing something like that. To try to get people together in a room to come together to a consensus that works for everybody. Exactly. That's what my job would be.
Exactly. And this is why I take offense to this, because I agree. Did John do something stupid? I won't disagree with that. Was it illegal? No. Was it unethical? No. Was it within the parameters of the law?
Well,
yes.
It wasn't stupid up until the campaign donation, right? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Because everything prior to that, I applaud him for that.
No, that's what he did. No, that's the only issue I have, Steve, is the look, taking that grand.
But see, all you see in this whole...
After the campaign, you're not in an active campaign. I mean, obviously he probably has bills. I don't know. But wait. Do it a different time.
Another week. Don't put your name on it. Just mail it.
Oh, my Lord.
But here's the thing that bugged me. Everything you read in here says special treatment for some, special treatment for some. How come I come? And it looks like we have a couple of disgruntled employees.
There are. A guy named Miss Matos, Nicole Matos.
Are you talking about inside the revenue?
They use a lot of her email quotes in here. She was told to back off by Adams in collections, told not to see certain properties. And my question was just the ones in the story or all. And then she told Karen Adams, "You told us John Pedrozo was good for the dollars. Is he going to write us a check?" This was in regards to the
John wasn't good for the dollars.
One of the defaults by Victor.
He forgot to put a comment.
Which is another thing. He vouched for one of his constituents.
Yes.
Right, and that's another thing I kind of chastised John a little bit for. And that's where I think Victor did John a disservice in May when he didn't make his payment and made John look a little bad. And John had went out on a line and said, "Hey, I vouched for Steve Colvard."
Yeah.
Can I finish?
Yes, you can go ahead. You've been rattling on for 20 minutes.
The situation that I have a problem with is that it looks here, as you read this, that R&R has a vested interest of taking these
revenue and
reimbursement, has a vested interest in going after bank seizures. It says here that there are 5 collectors in office, and each one handled 10 bank seizures in 1 week. We would have $2,500 in weekly revenue to our department. So you look at that and you say...
they get a spiff for seizing a bank account?
They get an administrative fee for doing this. And, bottom line, they've been cut like every other county department. Layoffs, furloughs, blah, blah, blah. And they're just saying if we were able to do this, bring a little more money into the department.
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay. On the other hand, you've got Ramona referring to Stanislaus County Treasurer and Tax Collector Gerald Gordon Ford, and he says, collectors try to work first on agreements and work with people as much as possible. To me, that conflicts what our R&R does. Our R&R wants to go for the throat, get those bank seizures, because we can have $2,500.
Well, it is a last resort, Robert.
Then it comes... Well, that's fine if the piece was written that way.
I understand what you're saying.
You got a situation with Summit. There's a lot of bias. You got
and
Summit.
That's what we're talking about, the story.
Summit Sales was in collections. Mattis took it upon herself to say she knew the business owner personally and believed that he had money, pointing out that he owned several homes. What does that have to do with anything? Summit Sales, if it's incorporated, you cannot pierce the corporation shell. So the corporate assets of which the taxes are being taken out of have nothing to do with the gentleman, how many homes he owns. And how do you know what his finances look like? What if the homes are mortgaged to the hilt to pay for some of Summit Sales? Maybe the guy, you don't know, but Mattis takes it upon herself to make it sound like she knows more than she really knows. The situation with 2 other things, and I'm done, is the situation is in November of 2013, the owner reduced his monthly payments, Mr. Victor, to $2,000 a month. Okay?
Right.
So between then and now, he owes only $60,000 left, which means from November of 2013 to today, he's paid over $82,000 to get this bill resolved. So Mr. Victor is making every effort, and Mr. Pedrozo going out of his way to try to help Mr. Victor, to me, is a win for the county, because we got $82,000. And a bank seizure, you would have lost 120 jobs, and who knows what else.
I agree. I couldn't agree more.
The one last problem I have is Ramona Javargas constantly goes to a young lady by the name of April Haika Eakins, Professor Emeritus and Political Science at California State University. My problem is she's the same lady who said that when John tried to help Miss Porras, oh my God, that was a conflict, and whoop-de-doop-de-doop. Here she says the same thing. Why is she helping him and not anyone else? Asked April Eakins. Well, why doesn't April Eakins look into it and find out, or why didn't Ramona find out? Is he the only one? Maybe he's not the only one.
He may have helped other
And so
people.
what happens to me is I look at this all and I go to myself and I think to myself, this is a hit piece. It's a hit piece against Karen Adams. She handles it very eloquently, and it's a hit piece against John Pedrozo.
And that's a hit piece because they want to sell more newspapers, or is there a personal vendetta somewhere?
Well, John Pedrozo, of course, people want him run out on a rail.
Why?
I think it's this. I think we have a very important election coming up for county sheriff.
John has a tough district. He represents Livingston all the way to the north of us, and LeGrand and Planada all the way to the south. And he appoints somebody to, a planning commission, let's say, from one direction or the other that one direction or the other doesn't like.
He's in trouble.
See what I mean? He's a target. He can't win to save himself. If he goes right, he's wrong. If he goes left, he's even wrong.
And you look at this. Okay, you look at this. You see in this hit piece, Lynn Davis, no comment. Hub Walsh, well,
I don't do that. Oh, no, I would never.
Not me. And maybe Hub doesn't. But I do know from my information that Deidre Kelsey does. And for her to lie in a newspaper and throw John under a bus angers me. When I go through Winton and see her district in shambles, do your job, lady.
Not the first time she's thrown John under a bus.
From my perspective, and maybe it's just like I said, a perspective is I applaud the fact that we would have supervisors that you could go to and say, look, I have a tax situation. Is there any way you can get a group of us together to try to resolve it?
I
applaud that.
Job. I agree with you.
And I hope that as a result of this, we'll call it a hit piece or just this piece in the newspaper, that they're less apt to do something like that, because I think that's a positive in our community.
And I got angry because I thought it had a negative slant, and Casey said, hey, John did something stupid by taking a contribution, and I said, I don't disagree with you on that.
What he did about helping his constituent, you and I are on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
But think about it, Steve. If you did something really nice for somebody here at the station, and they wanted to lay $1,000 on you, okay, you probably think about it twice. You might say, I appreciate the gesture.
Yeah.
I really appreciate what you're doing, knowing that person is behind.
Well, let me put this in. Let me put this in political rhetoric, and I talked to this about Casey. I'm reading a book about Teddy Roosevelt. And everybody who follows history knows that Teddy Roosevelt was going after Standard Oil as the evil trust. In the 1904 election campaign, Standard Oil was going to give Teddy Roosevelt a check with no amount in it and said, fill it in what you need.
They basically own the world at that point, right?
Right. And so Teddy Roosevelt said, he told Cortelyou, his advisor, and he said, tell them to take the check and please keep it. I don't want it. And the reason being is because Teddy Roosevelt, unlike John Pedrozo, saw the handwriting on the wall down the road.
Right.
Johnny needs to look at the fact that there is perception, that he has some issues in his area, which he does.
But couldn't he have answered that gentleman by saying, look, sir, I didn't help you because of who you are. I helped you because I think I did the right thing.
I think that's true.
Now, if you want to donate to my campaign, I'm flattered, but go through the proper channels. I mean, is that what you're counseling?
Well, he did go through the proper channels. It was just very timely, and John said, hey, not here.
I would make no apologies for that if I was John. I mean, I think he did the right thing, my personal opinion.
He did the right thing.
He thinks he didn't do the right thing.
And taking the contribution, but the tax scenario, everybody thinks that he kind of...
I think everybody in this room agrees with you, Steve. And that's what I said. I have no problem with him. And that's why I think the story gets a little convoluted and a little...
wordy.
Salacious means of a sexual nature. It's just a little...
fictitious.
Or the National Enquirer over there. I mean, are we the Star?
And the problem I have is...
I just think that it was...
But let me ask you this, though, Case.
Now, I do have questions for Karen Adams when she gets in here. And I hope she comes in.
Well, I'd like to know why...
What would you like to ask Karen
Why
Adams?
did they stop doing bank seizures? Why did they carry out illegal bank seizures where she had to return the money?
Right.
What was illegal about it?
If she's doing such a great job and wants re-election, why did we take this gentleman's money not once, but twice? And I'm not talking about two different gentlemen, the same guy. Okay, we took his money twice. And
illegally?
Yes, they had to give the money back. They had to give
She said it was done
improperly, illegally, whatever you want to say.
In your opinion, that doesn't show much competence.
Well, it shows that you're not doing your job. I mean, you want your tax collector to be on solid footing because, as you know, when you do things illegally, that usually has a lawsuit connotation or
it says right here. It says there were several bank seizures that came to my attention that were not executed legally, and it's my job to follow the law.
Now, Karen said it's because she has diminishing staff, these furloughs, these things we talked about, which is a dichotomy because you need to recoup money to be able to pay, and she had less staff to do this.
And it says that going after it says adding that collectors tried to seize money to extinguish debts past 3 years, a violation of the state revenue and taxation code. So my question is, why didn't you start it before?
That's some of the questions we have for Karen. Like I say, to me, there's more questions about Karen's operation over there and what she's doing and these disgruntled employees that seem to come out of the woodwork in her departments because we know about the 2011 issues and some of the things went over there. They had to pay some of her employees some settlements, if you will, $20,000, $30,000 because they were discriminated against, that sort of thing. So I see more of a problem in the tax collector's office over here and some of their procedures or lack of procedures than I ever do with Supervisor Pedrozo, other than doing just a really dumb thing. Look at the calendar next time, okay? But as far as helping the constituent, keeping 167 jobs online, that's admirable, John. I know why you did it. There was no malice in your heart. There was no criminal intent in your heart. You lead with your heart, and sometimes it just gets you in a little bit of a trouble.
What if John's in the office right now listening to our show going, rubbing his hands together going, I got them?
No, I don't. I
just had to throw that out there, John, go, oh my God.
Okay, so we beat that horse to death.
Well, here's one thing, though, I want to make a spin on this, that Steve, we're having a real contentious sheriff's race.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that.
Well, no, you're not going to, because I got a bunch of stuff I want to talk about. Well, you talked Thursday with Frank.
We have a young lady that's going to join us.
She's not here yet.
Yes, she is. They're outside.
Okay, my question is, You've got.
Well, my question to you is why does John seem to be the target of
here's the
something
thing.
or somebody?
John was good buddies with who?
Mark Payson.
Exactly. And Mark had John, and I think John's done some stupid things in the past, and Mark helped him keep him out of trouble. Mark was very eloquent. Mark was able to dance very well. Okay, and I think he helped. I noticed that John is the target of an attack. Now,
it seems that way.
If you've got, now look at the newspaper. You got 4 supervisors that say nothing. Don't help John in any way, shape, or form. So
well,
to me,
3 threw him under the bus. 1 said nothing. Yeah.
Well, okay. So therefore, they're not your help. You got John going backwards. You got your boy maybe taking over as the sheriff, and that's going to think something that when Mr. Lunny and I talk, I would like to know. what is going to be the new relationship between the sheriff and the district attorney. Pat worked for the district attorney. Now, if you got John reeling backwards, you got the 4 supervisors saying nothing, and you own the sheriff, you basically control the county. Okay, and that's what some people are telling me. That the reason that Pat Lunny is being put up by Larry Morris is because Larry did not have a great relationship with Mark, didn't get what he wanted. John backed Mark more than he did Larry. Of course, we all know about the Jim Pacheco situation. So people are telling me...
And you think that's the why there's...
That's what I was being told. I'm dumb. I'm stupid. I'm a parrot.
There's, unfortunately, Mark and Larry had a little bit of a...
Okay,
but do you think that John Pedrozo is being persecuted now because of his relationship with our ex-sheriff?
He could be, because I'll tell you what I had yesterday.
Casey's thinking right now. I want to hear what Casey has to say.
50% of it is because he did a dumb thing and it's easy to pick on. It's like looking at the little fat kid on the playground and going, geez.
Whoa, you went there with weight.
Okay, sorry.
You're over 300 pounds, my friend.
By the way, we have to finish our contest. Okay, it's like looking on the little kid on the playground that never, he's uncoordinated, he screws up and everybody laughs. John does those kind of things. Like I say, he brought that particular issue upon himself. And it was just easy fodder. And it's like when I say you're in a bad marriage, you can leave your underwear on the floor, nobody cares. But when it's going south, man, it's World War III. So for some reason, John's in crosshairs.
Right.
And when he pops up on an email, look
and
at
he's
this.
in crosshairs because of his association with our ex-sheriff.
Well, I think it's more than that.
I think it's more than that, Steve. John has can have somewhat of an abrasive personality.
Really?
And when you're on your way up and you piss some people off,
you see them
they
on your way
remember
down.
that. Okay,
that's very true.
Now I'm not saying he's on his way down, but there's a lot of people that don't forget that.
Let's not keep beating that horse because we have a lot of stuff. Real quick.
Well, Robert's the one that keeps going on. We got to go to our next break, Robert.
Real quick. I want to talk about new bike signs downtown that we paid for. Okay, I want to talk about the business license fee is now going from an annual basis from a quarterly basis to an annual basis, which may create undue hardship on struggling businesses.
Right.
Kudos to Justin at McDonald's. Justin, we raved about Justin on McDonald's, and Mr. Abate had a meeting. He said, "Hey, those guys on Citizen Watch love you."
Gave
him a raise or some spiff, and the kid was happy when I saw him yesterday.
Is there any way you to say some good things about me?
Not yet.
Maybe I'll take that to my boss, see if I can't get myself right.
Mr. Abate.
One thing I did have a problem with was an assistant DA. Casey's like shaking his head.
No, the time. That's all.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do it. I'll do the DA thing, and then you have your girl.
How long is the DA thing? Because is the next segment gonna?
Yeah, but we'll work her in. She'll get to see the magic of radio.
Go ahead, real quick.
Real quick. I wanted to put in my application for. What was it, Casey?
Grand jury.
So I go walk in, right? I take all my stuff off like I'm supposed to, my rings, my watches, my shoes, my underwear. I stick it in a bucket. It goes through. Here comes some guy behind me. He keeps walking. I go, yo, dude, whoa. And the police just let him go. And I go, excuse me, because I'm hobbling on one foot. I go, don't you have to stop? I work here.
All right. Officer of the court.
What do you mean you work here? I'm an officer of the court. Okay, so you could be carrying a gun like anybody else. Yeah. Excuse me, he had no time for me.
Robert had a hard time with people.
So I sat at the court waiting for him to come out. And he comes out. And he goes, and what's your name? And I go, what's your name? And he goes, I'm Tom Mien. I'm an assistant district attorney. I go, you work with Larry Morse? Yeah. You work with Fat Lunny, right? Yeah. You work with Wayne Hutton? Yeah. Okay, I know where to find you. Well, what's this about? I go, I didn't like your attitude. I work here, so therefore I deserve. I go, I don't like that at all. He goes, well, who are you? I introduced myself. He said, and who do you work for? I go, myself. He asked me another question. I said, this isn't a court of law. You're not going to grill me. I got my information. Have a nice day. We're done. Okay.
Making friends and spreading the love. At Citizen Watch.
I was angry that I had to undress. And here's this guy. So Casey explained it to me. Casey, explain it.
Well, they're officers of the court, and they're given that liberty. They can walk in with their briefcases full of stuff. Police officers the same way. A police officer walks through that. And the public defender with a jump rope in his house? I understand that you're concerned. And trust me, in Oklahoma City, just 2 weeks ago, we had a lawyer that was able to come through the detectors like that unsearched. He was bringing in cell phones. He was bringing in sex toys, having these clients of his as a public defender perform sexual acts in front of him, recording them, having him touch them.
Are you?
There was one client. She thought this guy was her lawyer and went along with it for 4 months because she didn't know any better. And this is what we talk about. I know. But this is what we talk about: color under the assault of authority, and why police officers have a higher standard. And the theory is because they have that higher standard, they're not going to bring something into the courthouse. Now, Robert saw it firsthand.
I saw it firsthand. What bugged me, the first
guy
thing
could be bringing something in.
The first thing I thought of, Casey goes, but Robert, he goes there, he sees them, or they go, don't they see the public defender every day? Yeah. Did they think that they would see him hanging around his garage?
Right.
Because anybody who knows,
Robert,
he tried to commit
suicide. We've got to go to break. We're way over.
Who are we expecting in this third segment?
A girl named Delainie from UC Merced. She's running for office over there. I met her Saturday night at the Feet Changing Lives event. A lot of politicos were there. I was introduced to her. I said, hey, come on in for 10 minutes. So here we are.
Perfect.
We're at that 10 minutes. We'll be right back, folks, on
And
Citizen
Tom
Watch.
Yen, I hope you lose your next case.
Hey, now, come on. Folks, welcome back to our third edition of Citizen Watch here on this Tuesday, April 22nd. Let me look outside at the weather. I got a new Tony Dosetti weather vane from his campaign. Well, that thing is really spinning. I'm not sure, Steve. North, east, western. Well, we'll see if it settles down here in a little while. But, folks, welcome back to Citizen Watch, AM 1480, KYOS, the power of local radio. If you want to see us, you can go to YouTube, type in KYOS 1480 AM. All of our videos come up. We appreciate all of our listeners. The hits have been absolutely fantastic. Our tip line, area code 209-406-8728. I haven't forgot about that issue with the school district and the diploma mills and what's going on over there at the Merced Union High School District. I haven't forgot. I've got to bring that information in. We've had so many things that have been happening in the news. You'll have to excuse me. I wanted to talk about the city council meeting last night. We'll have to wait until Thursday, maybe even next week. We don't have enough time on these airways. But we got Robert. He's out of the room for a minute. Maybe he'll stay out. Nope, too late. You know, folks, I wanted to bring in two guests that we had come in today. Jaron from UC Merced, a Sonora native that's going down here, and Delainie, who's a native of Los Banos, I think you told me. She's running for an office. So I'm going to let you guys tell us what you're doing over there at UC Merced, why you came in today, why it's important that you came in today, because something happens Thursday, right?
Yes.
Okay, Delainie, what happens?
All right, so we are currently involved in the Associated Students at UC Merced, which is an organization that's student-led that runs a $1.2 million budget of student fees and allocates them to clubs and organizations and different departments and things on campus.
Wow.
We are running for election, and voting happens this Thursday.
Okay.
So personally, I am running for Natural Sciences Senator, and Jaron is running for president. We are running with Bobcats United, that is the political party that Jaron founded a year ago, and our voting is going to be Thursday from 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. on Friday. And Jaron, do you want to tell them a little bit more about Bobcats United?
Yeah, Jaron, what's this political party you started? Does it have a political bent?
Well, so in the UC system, there's actually parties at most of the campuses.
Right.
So Bobcats United is the first values-based political group at ASUC or at UC Merced for ASUCM. It's based on magnanimity and humility. And what we really came in was to try and take what was kind of a small, very elite little government and turn it on its head. We wanted to bring it back down to the students, back down to, well, the people with that. We really wanted to make a lot more people involved, be a lot more transparent. And that's a lot of the stuff we've worked on this past year. So no ideological bent. We base all of our decisions really a lot on the values, core values of our organization.
So there's two things you got going, if I'm not mistaken. You're running for president of...
I'm running for president of the Associated Students. I currently serve as the president, too.
Right. Oh, so you're current president running for your second term? Are you termed out after this?
No, I can do three.
You can do three? Were they 2-year terms, 1-year terms?
1-year terms.
1-year terms. And you guys are administer $1.2 million budget? Mm-hmm. Can you go down to 2222 M Street and show our county leaders how to run a budget? I'm serious. They're $10 million in the hole. You guys aren't in the hole over there, are you?
Would you at least be interested in sticking around after you graduate and maybe helping them out up there?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, with debt and everything, we give private lessons, too. So we're happy to help out.
Well, talk in real small words, and I think you'll captivate them. Okay, and the second thing you're doing is this Bobcats United. That's your political group that you've started, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that is, explain a little bit about what that's trying to do. That's not obviously spending the $1.2 million. That's something separate, right?
Absolutely.
What are you trying to bring focus to or
third
highlight?
party?
What?
A third party?
No, so we are the main parties right now. So we were the first values-based political organization on campus, and we are now running with, there's another one as well.
Don't you think the Republican and Democrat Party would say the same thing, that they're a values-based?
Or do you include everybody? Is that what I'm hearing you?
So we have clubs for those organizations, but they do not necessarily have groups which run for AS. So Bobcats United is specifically a party for our associated students only. We run candidates. We establish a platform for the year. And as an organization, we last all year round, which is actually kind of unique to UC Merced. We don't believe in just creating an organization for the campaign, trying to get in and then...
Is that unique to the UC Merced campus?
Yes, it is. Very often, a lot of these things are very temporary. We try to be there all year round for students.
But as far as the Merced United party that you're starting for just the UC Merced students, is that universal on all UC campuses?
There's a number of different parties at other campuses, at least 2 generally.
I mean, if you wanted to classify, say, UC Berkeley, they're run by Democrats or they're run by Republicans, or, I mean, could you do that? Or
I would generally say the UC system is liberal. As a whole, that there is not necessarily a conservative element of that. Generally, it is a difference between the very, very far social left and a lot of kind of liberal as far as tuition, as far as government programs, stuff like that.
Right.
So we do not have an ideological bend.
The Young Republicans an adversary?
Oh, no.
No,
we
they're
have
part of
many
your
friends.
group also?
They're part of both groups, actually. We don't have, it's not based on Republican or Democrat affiliation. It's actually just what your goals are for the associated students. So it's entirely different from the national political spectrum.
See, that's what I like. I was talking about
refreshing.
this a week or so ago. You guys had, and I don't know if it was you, I think I talked to you about it Saturday night. They had Ruben Navarrete, and they had the mayor from San Antonio, Mr. Castro, I believe it is. And I thought the GOP did the wing out there, whatever. I thought that was good because they were reaching across the aisle, trying to get consensus. And don't you find that frustrating as young people, what you see on the national, local, state scene, where you have 2 sides just hammering it out, lying in the sand, nobody will cross it, like trench fort warfare in World War I, if you ever learned about that. Don't you find that frustrating as young people coming up?
I find it incredibly frustrating, and our opinion is, I just about a month ago, we were lobbying with State Senator Berryhill, and then we're going over to Assemblymember Adam Gray. We do not look at the different partisan lines. We believe higher education is a right, and that's an issue that is for both parties, right, and independents and anybody.
How about paying for things? I know young people are idealistic, and I won't say you're not realistic.
Oh, no, I'm very realistic. That debt is very, very real.
Where do we get the money to provide education for everybody as a right? And I'm just asking.
Take it away from the penal system.
Well, now this is where we go.
We had that debate last week where we spend $10 on a prisoner and $2 on higher education.
Interesting, though, about statistics, Steve. There's a lot more prisoners, or a lot less prisoners than there are school kids. So when you dilute out that money, you can see how kind of it makes one side look a little lower. If we talked about 100,000 school kids and 100,000 prisoners, I think you'd see some difference.
I think, you prioritize and then you work with what you got in the budget.
Right. But I want to hear what the young people have to say. And you too, Delainie, don't be quiet just because the president's here. What do you think? How do you think we're going to increase our revenues, or do we have to look at what we spend for things? In other words, if we're spending $35 for a position or $200,000 for a professor out there, do we go backwards in their wages, or do we try to find more wages?
I would say it's a little dangerous to go backwards on their wages, simply because we are going to universities for quality education. And if you decrease that competitive wage, it's going to be a little bit difficult to always get the optimal professors. But ironically enough, we're actually doing an event tomorrow at the campus to discuss some ways to get our tuition fees down. So I'm glad that you brought that up. One of the ways that we're going to be discussing, we're going to be handing out some top ramen, kind of the little joke
the college
about
kids staple.
Right, college kids and our top ramen. It's not a joke. We do actually live on
Have you
this
been able
stuff.
to identify in the system where there might be a little excess that you could be able to cut in order to make that tuition drop?
I think it's clear to students that there is, the term we use is administrative bloat.
Right.
The UC system has increased largely in size. Now, a lot of that are services that were never offered before, things that are really good to the university. So some of those costs are good. Other ones,
but are there some that you would be willing to do without if they lowered your tuition?
I think so, but I think the main issue isn't so much even the cost of the administration, whatnot. It has to relate to the fact that we don't have a dedicated funding cost. When people look at what they're going to cut in the budget to fund their project, it is the prisons have to be funded. It is, the debt has to be funded. These have to be funded. Right. But where do we take it from? Let's take it from the colleges. We can always cut them.
Well, you bring up a good thing, and I'm sorry that we brought you in for just a little bit of time, but maybe we can have you back after the election if you're successful, or we'll be calling you the former president of the ASU. But I find it interesting that, these are young people, Steve. These are our future, and
I'm going to tell you, I'm a little bit encouraged right now.
I'm very encouraged. Like I said, I read that article last week, and when I met Delainie the other night, she was out there at an event and promoting herself, and it's good to see young people involved. I think you would agree that it's better. I see a lot of people behind a video game. It's like there's a real world out there, and you're going to have such an impact on it. This is the Velvet Sledgehammer back in studio. But I, again, want to thank you for coming in.
You're done.
We're getting close to the end. That's why I'm glad you made it back. But Delainie, the best of luck to you.
Senator?
Jaron, I hope that
President.
you become president again and again.
Obama and Diana here.
I think you could really give our politicals some insight, and I hope they listen to you. I know Adam Gray's a big goes out there to the UC a lot.
Yes.
I hope our other politicals. I hope you see our supervisors, our city council people. I know Mr. Murphy. What'd you call him, Professor Murphy? Professor Murphy, Mike Murphy with the city council.
He out there, doesn't he?
That's my new nickname. I'm going to call him Professor Murphy, but he's a good guy, and he's fairly young himself and sees what needs to be done. And I tell you, we can all row this boat in the same way together. I just find it very frustrating as you do some of these divisions, and I'm glad to see we're trying to bridge that and at least talk about it, because that's the only way we're going to get things done, right?
And we'd love to have you guys in here and get your perspective on how things are
we're
going.
in the election season.
Win your elections.
I think you have my number, Delainie.
I
You're
do.
more than welcome to call me.
Have his number.
I'm sorry?
Why does the young lady have your number, not the guy?
I didn't know about Jaron until he came in today,
You
Robert.
called him the wrong name. You called him Jared.
No, I said Jaron. No, it wasn't Subway.
It's okay, everybody does
What did he
it.
call you?
He can have my number too.
Yeah,
That's
see?
all right.
Did he call you Jared?
All right, Robert. What do you have to say real quickly? We got 1 second.
Give me a seat.
Oh, geez.
Okay. Basically, what I had a problem
Big
with
radio
is
star.
I found out that the business license fees for the city are going to be boosted from quarterly to an annual, and I called Josh Pedrozo on it, and Josh didn't get my point. I'm just thinking that if you have a business, a startup business, a new business, a business that's struggling, going from a quarterly to an annually puts undue hardship on that business. Okay, I talked to Josh, and he didn't get it, and I said, Josh, do you pay your PG&E as you go along, or do you pay him annually?
There you go.
And he said, well, everybody thinks. And I said, I think you're all wet. And I can say that.
Point as a businessman, what happens if you have a couple of bad quarters?
I hear you.
What happens if you start a business, it goes out 5 months later, now do you get your refund?
Yeah, a lot of things that
My
were
mom always
questioned.
said there were two poor payers, those that pay too early and those that pay too late. You want to pay on time. So it'll be interesting. to see
Mr.
what the
Victor
city
was the
does.
one that paid what?
Mr. Victor was a poor payer, but we'll leave that at that. Folks, thank you for listening to Citizen Watch. Tune in next Thursday, AM 1480.
And guess what I got? I got a Jimmy Durante little stick pin.
Jet Abate, Mr. Abate, you were the winner of the.
No, he wasn't. Ralph Williams was at 281.
Oh, give me a break. Bye-bye, folks.